You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by MartinClinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
Well, good morning, everyone. Okay, questions. Somebody was asking about, I call it kefir. Some might say it differently than that. Let me just, what's my take on it? Well, I like it. It's dairy, some grain. They use a grain in dairy, but they're a good source of, me, I love fermented food. When I say I love them, I don't necessarily like eating them. That's only because of my taste buds, okay? But they're actually good for you. Fermented foods, kombucha, and are very good for you. Kefir is, I like it better than yogurt in terms of its more broad spectrum probiotic. And as long as they're not adding sugars to it, there's a little milk sugar that's always in there, but no big problem. I got no problem with it, okay? I find it better than yogurt in terms of its, it's got a little bit more variety of probiotics. So I like it. Okay, so no problem with that. If you like that, you can have it on the reset if you want. I got no problem with that. Okay? Yogurt, especially if you make your own yogurt, Greek plain yogurt, again, I don't particularly like the taste of it, but it's certainly not bad for you. Okay, the other yogurts, like anything where the food industry makes them and puts sugar in them, stay away from that stuff, okay? Somebody was asking this morning, and I just want to explain this again, and it's a good question. If you Google, okay, and I say that, I don't know, I haven't Googled it, but I would think if you Google the Atkins diet, the vast majority of what you'll see there is not good for you, they say. Okay, so just remember that if you Google me, there are a lot of people that don't like what I got to say. Okay, so just remember that. What I like to do is give you information. Information provides you with choices to make. God gave you a brain, use it. Okay, use it. And, you got to make up your mind. Some people they never want to think outside the box at all. And they get this idea. This is 40 years old, by the way. Oh, the Atkins diet. Dr. Atkins, let me just tell you first of all, Dr. Atkins was a cardiologist. Okay, he wasn't a dummy, whatever. He was a very smart guy. And he didn't die because of his diet, okay? Because you might read that. Actually, somebody told me that. He died of an aneurysm. No, he didn't. He was working in his clinic in the 70s, not in the 1970s, but, several years ago, and he fell on ice, hit his head, and never regained consciousness. He died from the Atkins diet. No, he didn't. And the Atkins diet gives you kidney problems. Like, you can Google that. They'll probably tell you that because in their mind, okay, let me just tell you what happens in nutrition. In their mind, remember, fat makes you fat and protein is hard on your kidneys. I'll tell you where that old wives' tale came from. It comes from the fact that if you see protein in your urine, okay, protein in your urine can mean stress on the kidneys, okay? And therefore, if it's protein in the urine and it's stress on the kidneys, therefore, it must be because you're eating too much protein. Thus, the Atkins diet, right? Or Dr. Martin's diet, the reset, must be hard on your kidneys. No, it's not. It's the opposite. Remember what I said. Protein does not affect the kidneys. Well, it has a good effect on the kidneys. The vast majority of people don't eat enough protein. Ladies, you don't eat enough protein. By and large, you don't get enough protein. The world's problems isn't protein. The world's problems isn't fat. The world's problems is carbohydrates. And you can well live without them. You don't need carbohydrates to survive. You don't. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to eat them. I'm just telling you, you don't need them. Your body will take steak and turn it into sugar if it needs it. You know, like I said, if you don't believe what I'm saying about sugar, just understand that your whole body and insulin's biggest job is to make sure your blood sugar is in a very tight range. What damages the kidneys is sugar. What damages the kidneys is insulin resistance. When you've been eating too much sugar and crappy carbohydrates, I tell you guys, it's the answer to kidney damage. Because, just going to repeat, when your insulin is high, you create inflammation in the body. The body responds by creating what we call a cytokine or cytokine storm. And that storm, the first thing that it does, it starts to affect your capillaries. We're going to talk about this morning because there's some of the questions that are asked. And this is why your eyes can be affected. The number one thing that can happen to a diabetic is diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, cataracts. When you have trouble with your eyeballs, the vast majority of time it's your capillaries. Because if you look in behind the eye, okay, you look in, when an optometrist or an ophthalmologist or a doctor looks in behind your eye, you know what he sees? Highways. The 407, the 403, the 401. It's like you're in Toronto, okay? And you're looking in the highways because you will see all these little blood vessels. And it's a good thing to look in the eye because you can see damage inside that eye. But the first thing that happens when your blood sugars are too high, it damages the capillaries. Well, the capillaries don't just affect your eyes. The capillaries affect your kidneys. It's that little blood supply into the kidney. That's what gets damaged very early. And this is a big, big problem. So again, you know, when you hear the Atkins diet is no good for you, that's nonsense. One thing I give Atkins credit for was his work, because what he was saying, go back into the 1970s. Atkins was saying cholesterol is not the problem. That's what he was saying. He said, for sure, eat your bacon and eat your butter and eat your eggs and eat your cheese. And he got vilified. Can you imagine? They went after him. Well, who went after him? Big Pharma, the pharmaceuticals. They didn't like Atkins, especially when they came out with statin drugs. They couldn't stand Atkins. He was going against them. And he was, listen, again, can I tell you, he was not a dummy. He was a cardiologist who happened to look at heart disease in a different fashion. Now, what he didn't understand in the 1970s is what we know today about inflammation. You know, he knew a little bit, but he didn't understand all of that. And we know so much more today about inflammation, that inflammation is not Houdini. Inflammation comes when your insulin is too high. And free radical damage, it's a double-edged sword of inflammation, free radicals. Free radicals is oxidative damage that affects your blood vessels and the capillaries. That's why Dr. Martin calls sugar the new smoking. The new smoking. Because just like every doctor in the universe today would tell you smoking's no good for you, why aren't they saying sugar's no good for you? Because of the two big industries, the pharmaceutical, and like I said, I'm not against medications if you need it. I'm not against it. So don't misquote me. Please. Okay? Don't misquote me. And secondly, big food. Big foods business is not to feed you. It's not to feed you. Big Food's business is to addict you. And you go through the middle aisles of your grocery stores, and those foods are addictive because for several reasons, but they changed the fat, they changed the sugar, and they hired people in the food industry who still work there today, all about crunch and taste and addiction. And the biggest addiction, okay, there was an article yesterday about COVID. I knew you were going to mention it, weren't you, Dr. Martin? COVID. Well, come on, guys. Every day. We're still closed down generally, okay? Anyway, the article was that there's going to be more addicts come out of COVID, the destructionness of addiction. And they were only talking about depression and getting addicted to drugs and how that's, this COVID is making many more addicts. But I'm telling you, what they didn't talk about is how many more addicts they're making of people who are going to become carboholics if they already weren't, because they're stuck at home or whatever, right? I mean, these are huge implications, but you know me, I talk about this all the time. So Atkins, let's go back to the question. Atkins, they came at him and they gave him a bad reputation because of his insistence that heart disease was not caused by cholesterol. And remember, he was a cardiologist. He wasn't a dummy. It's almost like, he got his degree. You read some stuff about him online and he got his degree out of a cereal box or something. This guy was at the forefront, and that's why I respect that. Now, look, again, you guys make up your own mind. I'm going to give you what I believe with all my heart. And let me just give you another illustration here. Just because I was, going back and forth with someone the other day, and you know what tolerance is? Tolerance is someone that you disagree with, and you don't have to agree with them, but you respect their opinion. That's tolerance. You should see some of the comments I get against me. Intolerant. Like, you're a dummy. Okay. You got a right to your opinion. Okay. But all I'm saying is that for me, I use my clinical experience. Okay. Some people do research. I respect that. That really is, I do some research, but the biggest thing with me is I see real people, 46 years, real people, and and hundreds of thousands of patients over the years, hundreds of thousands, not exaggerating. And I've come to some very important conclusions. And guess what? I had to get results. I wasn't busy because, people had nothing else to do but come and see me. I was busy because of results. If you don't get results, at the end of the day, So I'm just sharing that. Okay. So here's me, a low carb guy. Always have been, always will be. If I come out someday and I'm not low carb, come and get me and put me in a home. Okay. I'm losing it up here. I've always been low carb, and this new thing that I'm doing with tremendous success, I just can't get over the success. And remember the start of the reset. The reset was to fix metabolic syndrome. It was, first of all, I used it with diabetics. And one of the questions is, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2? Okay, let's do that. Good question. Type 1 diabetes is autoimmune. Type 2 diabetes is what they call adult onset diabetes. Type 1 is autoimmune, okay? Type 2 is lifestyle. You cannot become diabetic, type 2 diabetic. It's food. I told you the cat story last week. If you're a diabetic, you are allergic to carbohydrates. It's as simple as that. You have to get rid of them. You can't negotiate with yourself. Don't negotiate. You know, when they used to say we don't negotiate with terrorists, pretend you're a terrorist. Don't negotiate with yourself. Oh, I can have a little bit of carb. No, not when you're a diabetic. No carbs. If you want to fix it, you can fix it. Now, type 1 is autoimmune. The body turned on itself. The pancreas is not working properly because of autoimmune disease. But I just want to tell you this, okay? I believe that every autoimmune disease, including type 1 diabetes, comes from the gut, leaky gut. 100% convinced of that. But when you're type 1, look, you need medication. This is the wonderful thing of the pharmaceutical industry. I give them, this is where they belong. This is when you have an autoimmune disease and look, you have to manage your blood sugars. I get that. You need to do that. Otherwise, you're going to die. But I just want to say this. For a type 1 diabetic, and there's so much more type 1 diabetes today. Why? There's more autoimmune. Why is there more autoimmune? Because there's more leaky gut. Can I tell you that? Yes. There's more leaky gut because of the overuse of antibiotics, because of the overuse of sugar, because of the overuse of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like Advil and whatever. People live on that stuff like it's candy. It disrupts their microbiome. I believe another reason, here's me, okay? Now you can come after me. You can disagree with me. But C-sections, there's an overuse of C-section. Now, listen to what I'm going to say. Even the Canadian and American obstetrician societies have told the doctors, you're doing too many C-sections. Now, please. C-sections can save your life. I get it, ladies. Don't come after me. All I'm saying is what those associations are saying, that there's too many of them. The problem with a C-section is that baby doesn't go down the canal. It doesn't go through the mucus of mommy the way it should. And where the baby gets the benefit of mommy's bacteria and microbiome. I believe it's a factor in autism. I believe it's a factor in autoimmune disease, why we see so much of it today. There's so much more autoimmune. And then you add chemicals into our society, 100,000 chemicals have been created, over 100,000 since World War II, and the vast majority of those chemicals are found in our homes. And the fact that we overclean. You know what I believe like autoimmune is? It's the canary in the coal mine. They have a fragile system. I believe it can come right in the placenta. This is why I talked to you about autism the other day. Autism is leaky gut. And one of the big factors, again, this is me. It's my opinion. One of the big factors in autism, because I believe autism is autoimmune. One of the big factors in any autoimmune disease like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and psoriatic arthritis and lupus and MS, leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky gut, leaky pancreas for type 1 diabetes. But the diet is the same, guys, because whether you're type 1 or type 2, and by the way, what is type 3 diabetes? Alzheimer's. Type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's. So guess what, guys? The answer is food. And for a type 1 diabetes, look, probiotics and all this for sure. Absolutely. I'm big on that. Fix the leaky gut. Get rid of the yeast. We talked about it this week, Candida. On Tuesday, I think it was. On Tuesday, I did if you didn't see the video on Candida, that to me is at the issue because of leaky gut. You don't get Candida albicans, and that gets up into your brain for MS, for autism. It wraps around your pancreas, in my opinion, for type 1 diabetes. And they do well. Type 1 diabetics do well. They need meds. They need to take the medication. They need insulin. Yes, they do. But they do really well controlling it. Type 1. By the same diet as type 2. Because they don't do well with carbs. They don't do well. And our carbs are so different. You know, I always tell my grandchildren, Grandpa had cookies and ice cream too, you know. They look at me like, you did, Grandpa? Yeah, well, I'm not that old, you know. As it was in the days of Noah, I tell them. Grandpa. Okay? But it's just that the sugar is changed, guys. It's not just that there's sugar, 200 pounds of it, but they changed the sugars in the 1970s and they gave us the Antichrist of sugars, high fructose corn syrup. It feeds Candida like nobody's business. It's full of mercury. And this is why we have so many problems today, and they're all connected. They're all connected. And Tony Jr. and I came up with this years ago, the 3 seeds of disease. And I never vary from that because it took us years to get it and to understand it. But the 3 seeds of all major disease, including autoimmune disease and diabetes and heart disease and cancer, the 3 seeds of disease are what? Insulin, leaky gut, free radical damage. And then pour inflammation on it, on a disease, and whoop, like a fire. It's gasoline to the fire, but inflammation doesn't start it. Inflammation comes because of the first 3. You either have leaky gut, or you have free radical damage, or you have high elevated insulin, or a lot of people have all 3 of those. People that are unwell, metabolic syndrome, guys, is what I treat the most. And, you know, I was saying yesterday, 88% of the population now, 88% have metabolic syndrome. You have metabolic syndrome, you have elevated insulin. You have insulin resistance or high circulating insulin. I'll repeat it. Okay? So, what should your blood sugars be? Well, look, early in the morning, your blood sugars are going to be, I'm not huge on measuring your blood sugar all the time. That comes from the pharmaceutical industry. What's my blood sugars? Oh, I better eat, right? I don't like it because, okay, and remember, please, just understand where I'm coming from. I don't like it because it's like taking your blood pressure every 5 minutes. You want to get high blood pressure? Take your blood pressure every 5 minutes. I get people say, I tell them, quit taking your blood pressure all the time. Quit taking your blood sugar all the time. Why are you doing that? It costs $1 every time you do that. The pharmaceutical company is going, take your blood sugar. They get $1 every time you do it. You know how many billions of dollars that is a year into their coffers? Of course they're telling you to take your blood sugar. And then they want you to take more medication if your blood sugar isn't right. I tell you, change your diet and your blood sugar will regulate itself. I like A1C more, okay? Which is an average over 2 or 3 months of your blood sugars. I like that test because it gives me a better, and if it's 5.7 and up, I like it below 5.7. I like it in the 5.5 or the 5.2 range. If it's 5.7 and up, you're in trouble. You're on the Titanic. You and insulin are enemies. You got a bad relationship. You're in a bad marriage with carbs. It's abusive. Get out of it. You can fix it. You can fix it. You can do it. You see, I'm not only in full-time education now, okay? Full-time education. I consider myself a full-time coach. I like coaching people, you know? I coached a lot of hockey. I coached baseball. I love that. I played a lot, but I coached too. I like coaching, Okay? I always say that if God gave me another career, I would have gone into coaching. Okay? Because I like that. I like motivating people. And guys, this is what I do. I like it. I like motivating you. You motivate me, by the way. You pump my tires up every day. I mean that. If I had an audience of one, I'd still preach. But, because just by God's grace, we have a huge audience, and I just want to teach. I want to coach you. And over the years, I used to tell my patients leaving the office, okay, here's your plan. It was always food. A few supplements, but always food. Always food. Here's your plan. And here's what I used to say to them. I can't go home with you, but pretend Dr. Martin's on your shoulder talking to you as you make choices in food. See, that's what a coach does. A coach encourages. Now listen, make better choices. Isn't life all about choices? Really, it is, isn't it? Right? It's all about choices. And every day you got choices to make, especially in the food, because we live in a world, we don't live on an island where there's not a lot of choice, A lot of tribes, they don't have a lot of choice. And you know what I tell people? Choice is overrated. Choice is overrated. That's the problem with the food industry. They've given us 1,000 choices. I often tell people, look, take your diet and go, bring it in. Why do you got to eat 60 different things? I love Jeanette and Nicole because they're good. But I married a woman that loves, she just like, I told my wife yesterday, you're the greatest grandmother that ever lived. Because grandma can't say no. And she loves cooking for them and baking and whatever, right? And Jeanette and Nicole are like that. They like to, but I said, don't eat all that stuff. You can make it, but don't eat it. Rope your diet in. Less variety. You see, eggs, meat, and cheese, doctor, they go, Doc, what can I eat beside eggs, meat, and cheese? Nothing for a month. You really got to rope your diet in during the reset. But it works. It fixes it. It fixes metabolic syndrome. Yeah, 100%. It's food, guys. Okay, so I'm like a coach. I send you home and I say, look, I can't go home with you. Now you make the right choices. And, it's not easy because we're surrounded by food, right? We're surrounded by food, especially like through this virus. Like when you're at home, the more you're at home, boy, jeepers, creepers. You just feel like eating all the stinking time, right? And when they were telling us to stay home, the last place they should have closed was the gyms. Jeepers creepers. And you know me, I told you guys that right from the start. The last place they should have closed are the beaches. And then the gyms. Okay. Type 1, type 2, diabetes, blood sugars, we talked about. Nitric oxide, okay? Somebody's asking, what is it? Well, nitric oxide, think of nitroglycerin, right? If you have an angina attack, they'll often give you a nitro under your tongue or a nitro patch. Explosion. It opens up your blood vessels so that if you're having angina, heart pain, because of the compression of blood vessels, nitric oxide opens them up, okay? So to answer the question, what is nitric oxide? Well, your blood vessels have nitric oxide in them. NO, nitric oxide. Very, very good for you. The problem is if you get older, nitric oxide goes down. Now you have much less elasticity, much less, where your blood vessels can open up. What elevates your nitric oxide? Okay? B12. You know me. B12. Eat your steak. Vitamin S. Vitamin S gives you vitamin B12. Do you ever hear me talking about the other B vitamins? Not so much. I want you to eat them. On the Martin Clinic alphabet is B12 because it's essential. And my estimation, this is me, 80% of the population are low in B12. They don't eat enough red meat. And B12 is not found in the plant kingdom. There's not enough B12 in the plants to feed a mouse. Just remember that. You need meat and not chicken. I promised I wouldn't say chicken and salad. A lady was offended yesterday. She said, you're degrading women. Hey, I'm a woman's doctor. Just ask any woman. Because I look at hormones. I'm on women's side. I understand exactly what they go through, even though I come from a different planet. Because I've studied women's issues for 46 years. Hormones for a lot of women. So I'm not, I ain't anti-woman. Believe you me when I tell me that. She says, I shouldn't say chicken and salad. Hey, I can't please everyone, can I? Okay. So nitric oxide, very important. Navitol, by the way, elevates your nitric oxide. That's why I love it. It opens, it makes your blood vessels better. Colloidal silver. Let me end with this. Okay? Let me end with this. By the way, one was blockages of the neck. And, well, you see, you want to elevate your nitric oxide if you have carotid arteries here that are blocking up. Elevate your nitric oxide. Lower your inflammation with your diet. It helps big time. Colloidal silver. Well, look, let me just finish with this, okay? Colloidal silver, it had some big years. A couple of years there. You got to go 20 years ago, maybe more than that even, where it just was the new kid on the block and everybody was talking about it. And I don't dislike colloidal silver as a natural antibiotic and whatever. Here's Dr. Martin's take, okay? So if you like colloidal silver, good for you. Don't take too much of it, okay? But I just got to tell you my experience. My experience is if you take colloidal silver and you take oil of oregano, they're very similar in what they do. Oil of oregano, though, in my opinion, okay, is better. It's more tolerant. It is more bioavailable, in my opinion. I find it to be a powerful antibiotic, antifungal, antiviral. And for me, clinically, my experiences with oil of oregano, and I never switched it because I've always liked it. I always said to the oil of oregano manufacturers, you owe Dr. Martin money, because I've always promoted it in my office. I always did. When I had a radio show in Northern Ontario for 20 years, colloidal silver, oil of oregano, I put it on the map in Northern Ontario. But because I liked it in the office with patients. Very, very antifungal. And you know what? It don't kill your good guys. It's God's natural antibiotic. That's the way I see it. It's God's answer to, look, and I'm not against antibiotics, and you guys know that, okay? It's just the overuse of them or whatever. Okay, so look, I'm very, very appreciative of you guys. If you get a chance, share this with others. If you have any questions, we're here for you. Our staff is here for you. We want to answer your questions. We want to motivate you to good health. And remember, choices you make. You got to make those choices. You're not going to be healthy by osmosis. It's not just going to happen. You have to make choices. And you have to, they're tough. I'm not saying they're easy. They're tough choices that you have to make every day, but you can do it. I know that. Okay? Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it.
You've reached the end of another Doctor is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.